Can Wake Forest close the deal in the ACC Atlantic? Welcome to the Voice of College Football as we break down the Demon Deacons and their trip to Death Valley. We got Les Johns on the line from Demon Deacons Digest on 247 Sports. Hey, Les, how's it going?
Going well, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Hope you're doing well.
I am doing well. Thank you for being here to break down an exciting football team that played a rather important game this past weekend in wrestling away control of the division from NC State, 45-42 at home. My question to you to get us started is, that was the most important game for Wake Forest football since?
2006, I would probably say. I wasn't covering the team then, but, you know, that's a team that won the ACC championship and advanced to the Orange Bowl. They got 11 wins. I'd have to say that I've heard about a Boston College game that was huge in that season. And then, of course, the ACC championship and the Orange Bowl. Those would be three huge games in that ACC championship season. But I've covered Wake Forest athletics since 2014. There's clearly not been a bigger game since I've been around. And Coach Clausen said this week that the reward of winning a big game is that you get another big game. And that's kind of where we're headed now as the Deacs travel to Death Valley to try to do something that hasn't been done since 1998. And that's Wake Forest grabbing a road victory at Clemson.
An important game and a very exciting game. NC State, of course, a very formidable foe, 45-42 game. And that accomplished, even though Sam Hartman wasn't necessarily on his game from start to finish by any stretch.
No, Sam was very not sharp. It was, you know, I'll give the Wolfpack some credit. You know, when you look at Sam's misses in that game, there definitely were a couple that were batted down at the line of scrimmage by the defensive line. And then there were several fantastic plays in the secondary by the North Carolina State, you know, corners and safeties. But then there also were about, you know, 7 or 8 passes where the target was wide open and very easy pass, and Sam just threw a grounder instead of a line drive, and kind of inexplicable. There were several drives that were stopped short because, you know, just Sam Hartman wasn't sharp. The defense got their stops, which is unusual for Wake Forest this season at times. And you would figure if it's an effective offense for Wake Forest, they probably have a 2 or 3 touchdown lead at the half. So, but instead it went down to the wire.
We asked folks that you would like the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football and share these videos out on social media, because if you enjoy them, others will as well. Got Les Johns on the line talking Wake Forest football. We had Les before the NC State game. Now we got him to review this one and look ahead to Clemson. You can join Les's work there at Demon Deacons Digest on 247 Sports. Is Dave Clausen and the offensive staff pleased with the balance between run and pass, or are they just kind of resigned to we're a passing team?
I think that they seek balance, and that, like, for instance, NC State is a team that's very stout against the rush, right? That's a team that only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns on the season entering last Saturday's game, and Wake got 3, you know. So, I mean, there are a lot of positives that came from the rushing game for Wake Forest Saturday, including that final drive that kind of clinched the game for Wake. It was like a 6-minute drive. You know, Wake moved at a much slower pace than usual because they're usually an up-tempo team. They took 6 minutes off the clock and finished with the touchdown. You know, Justice Ellison with several good runs, and Sam Hartman also extended some plays with his feet. So I don't think they're comfortable just being a passing team. The key to the RPO offense, as I've said in the past, is that each one of those snaps with the slow mesh can go a variety of ways depending upon how the defense is playing Wake Forest. And it's incumbent upon Sam Hartman to make the right reads as to hand the ball off, take off himself, or to look downfield for a receiver. So more often than not this season, he's opted to, you know, chuck the ball around, and that's working pretty well. But with the 3-headed monster at running back, I think they feel confident in that group. I believe Christian Beal-Smith is on the path to getting back on the field. So, yeah, they'd like to be a completely balanced offense. It probably isn't as balanced as they like, but I think they still have good weapons there.
Despite giving up 42 points, it was not a deplorable defensive effort. As you mentioned, they had 2 picks. They held the ground game in check. They had 2 sacks and 8 tackles for loss in this one. Has this been a narrative throughout the season in terms of giving up a lot of yardage and points, that this is just what it is on defense? Or is there a reasonable thought that this defense can play better?
I think both can be true, Mark. I mean, it's, I think that there are times the defense could play better, and I think that they've been inconsistent at best. If you look at their performance at Virginia, and then very often in the game against North Carolina State, the defense played very well. What really hurt Wake Forest Saturday and giving up all those points was special teams. There was a kickoff return for a touchdown to start off the second half, and then earlier there was a kickoff return that went to like the 20-yard line, to around midfield, that set NC State up for a short field. And then there also were the interceptions that set NC State up for short fields as well. I know you can't take every bit of that out, but, if you look at the number of times the Wake Forest defense actually gave up a sustained drive that resulted in a touchdown, there's probably only like one of those the entire game, until they went to prevent defense in the final minute of the game.
Very true. Very true. It was a game that I prioritized last weekend and took in. It was an entertaining one, like I said, off the top.
I'm sure, yeah.
Got Les Johns on the line, talking up Wake Forest, going to Clemson to battle with the Tigers here. You can catch Les's work at Demon Deacons Digest on the 247 Sports platform. All right, so this is the classic matchup of the big offense taking on the rugged, one of the best in the nation defenses. So despite Clemson's issues for them, you got to put that in context, issues for them. Overall, with 3 losses, the defense is still one of the very best. Do you see any particular advantage one way or the other here?
I mean, it's hard for me to consider the fact that Wake should be like a favorite going down to Death Valley. Once again, it's not a team that Wake has matched up well against, even during the Clawson era. It's not a team that Wake has beaten in Clemson since 1998. But I do not believe that the Clemson defense is just going to shut down the Wake Forest offense. I think that the way the Wake Forest offense operates, you can't take everything away. So Wake will take advantage of what is given. Wake is a little bit banged up. Clemson's a little bit banged up. I think both teams are probably going to score more points. Like Wake will score more points than Clemson's used to giving up. And conversely, Clemson will probably score more points than they're used to scoring these days, taking the UConn result out of the way. I'm expecting the game probably in the 30s. And you'd have to think that the higher scoring the game, the better off it is for Wake Forest. But I do think Wake will move the ball. I believe in the diversity of the Wake Forest offense, the fact that they have so many weapons at so many spots. Sam Hartman connected with 9 different receivers against NC State, and that was on a bad day. I think he'll come out and be more sharp than than he was last Saturday. He probably has a lot to prove, and it's a game that Wake can clinch the Atlantic Division with. I believe they're keyed up and focused and ready.
I know that A.T. Perry's a good receiver, but he certainly let a few go through his hands.
Yeah, once again, it was Wake put up 45 points, and it was not a great offensive performance, right? You're going up against the second best defense in the conference, with Clemson being first. You scored 45 points, and you didn't really play well on offense. And once again, that not playing well on offense was a variety of things. In other words, NC State certainly made their share of plays, but Wake Forest also shot themselves in the foot a number of times as well through bad passes and drops.
Les, I've never been one to consider myself an expert in trying to figure out the psychological advantages. I know what they could be, but I don't know which way they're going to go. So in this one, Clemson's used to big games. Maybe Wake Forest finally hits a stage and says, okay, well, all the marbles are on the table, and we're playing the best team in the conference, or what has been the best team in the conference. And Clemson, this is just what we do, and we're going to go out and claim our ground and, defend the ACC. Or if this is Wake Forest being excited about playing for a game to go to the ACC championship game versus a Clemson team that's thinking, okay, well, this just isn't our year, and this is not what we play for. We play for bigger prizes, and there's a bit of a letdown. I don't know where that all lies.
Yeah, that might be the biggest question mark entering this game, because you don't know where the headspace is for either one of these teams. I would argue that Wake probably came out a little bit too amped up, strangely enough, for the game at North Carolina. That's a team in which they blew a late lead last year and was really interested in kind of avenging that loss, and came out and played kind of outside themselves at times, had some uncharacteristic penalties, was flagged for unsportsmanlike and late hits and just things that a Wake Forest team doesn't usually do, right? So they didn't necessarily respond to that extra energy and extra motivation well 2 weeks ago at UNC. But then you would argue that maybe perhaps the defense did kind of rise up to that challenge just last week in a sold-out crowd at Truist Field, in a game in which everybody knew whoever wins has a stranglehold on the division title. So we'll see. I mean, I think playing in these big atmospheres and big-time games the last 2 weeks probably helps them ease into, kickoff Saturday against Clemson. They've been a part of meaningful football games now for several weeks in a row. They've been ranked in the college football playoff. None of this is quite as new as it was, 3 weeks ago. So they're kind of used to the extra media scrutiny, used to seeing their names on TV and being talked about. And I think hopefully they've kind of settled into those things, and it's not quite as shocking to the system, so to speak, Mark.
You mentioned the ranking. The playoff selection committee kicked in with a little bit of credit in the win against NC State, I believe, raising them 3 spots to number 10.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though that's reasonable? And what is the path from here, albeit 3 wins, of course, that have to come in ACC play, including the championship game, to get to a playoff that nobody's expecting, but still a playoff that you would think should be within reach for a Power 5 champion with just 1 loss?
I have conflicting thoughts on that, Mark. I think if Clemson was 10-1 with the exact same schedule, they'd probably be ranked 5th or 6th. With the exact same schedule, the exact same results, Clemson would be ranked 3 sports higher, 3 or 4.
That's not a good thing what you're telling us.
But conversely, I honestly think it's a fair assessment. I think when you rank the teams, seeing Wake Forest at number 10 isn't egregious. It's not like a catastrophe. I think the best path forward for Wake Forest and for Wake Forest fans is to look at this as a chance to win out, to win the ACC. And if you do that, then you're in one of the New Year's Six bowls. That's probably the ceiling at this point. I think that there are scenarios in which Wake could pop up in that top 4 to the college football playoff, but I think they're almost so far-fetched that it's not really worth digging into at this point. If all of a sudden Wake wins Boston College, they beat Clemson, and you're entering the ACC championship, and you see some other teams have fallen, then maybe as a fan you kind of take a peek at that and start looking, okay, what needs to happen for this insane thing to happen? But I think right now the best path is to think win an ACC championship and get into a New Year's Six bowl. And once again, that would be it already is one of the top 3 seasons in Wake Forest program history. They've only had 9 wins or more twice in the entire history of the program. So this already is a season to celebrate. It's just, can Wake finish the job? Can they get to an ACC championship and then win that?
Absolutely. It's been fun to watch. Les Johns, catch his work there at Demon Deacon Digest on 247 Sports. Les, enjoy the game, and we'll catch up with you soon, hopefully.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having me on.